Welcome to Manga's Seal YouTube channel. The previous video link is on the description box or on the top right card. Volume 15, The Half-Elf Godkin. Although the Dark Elves weren't considered enemies by the three captured Elves, the situation could be different now. Maybe Dark Elves were now considered enemies in the royal capital. Of course, it wouldn't be a problem if Ainz said they are not enemies to him. What is this place? Don't tell me this is the world of the Divine Tree. Ainz didn't know a thing about this world of the Divine Tree, but he could guess that it was probably something from their myths and legends. Or, perhaps, is it related to some player from Yggdrasil? There's a need to investigate, but I don't want to spend too much time here. I will do it sometime later. Ainz made him sit on a sofa in the living room and took a memo pad out. It contained a list of bullet points with the questions he needed to ask. He couldn't waste any time. If something failed in the process, he would have to kill the guy. Although it was extremely unlikely, someone suddenly disappearing from the royal capital could still cause problems in the future. Tell this friend of yours about various things you know, in as few words as possible. Ainz continued without waiting for his reply. Is there a possibility that you will die if someone used magic or other means to get information from you? Huh. No way there's going to be anything like that on me, right? The guy looked like he had no idea what Ainz was talking about, but there was a possibility that the elf just didn't know even if there was such a trap. If I remember correctly, it took 3 questions before it was activated that time. Ainz took such scenarios into account while he prepared the questions in the memo, so he just needed to go through the list from top to bottom. Do you know any Dark Elf village's location? I don't know the exact place, but I do know their general location in the Great Forest. It sounded like it was further south from the royal capital. He went into more detail, saying that it was in a place called the Three Trees, where the trees were huge. But Ainz couldn't make any sense of it as he didn't know the layout of this area. He would have to rely on Or, who was listening in. Continuing to the next question. When he was making this memo, the twins were surprised that he didn't include this question. Now that he thought about it, it did look important, so he moved on to the third question. Tell me what you know about the theocracy. The theocracy, that horrid country of humans. Those shitheads are attacking us for no reason at all. A country without honor, that attacked us well, we were unaware, a bunch of wretches who kidnapped hundreds of elves. So, started the guy's denunciation of the theocracy, which continued on with vigor, until Ainz stopped him in a fluster. But it did seem like the guy, who was only a commoner, didn't know how far the theocracy had advanced. He wasn't even sure if the elves were winning or losing. However, seeing the patrols moving in a tense mood compared to before, the common opinion among the elves was that the situation was not good. 3 questions were asked, but there was no indication of anything happening to the elf. As he thought, that time was an exception. In that case, he could ask the elf everything he wanted to hear about, but he couldn't really spend that much time with him. How are the relations between the elves and the Dark Elves? They aren't bad, right? Not really, I think. Before Ainz could ask him the reason for the slight pause, the elf started speaking again. I don't dislike them, and I don't think those around me have any bad feelings about the Dark Elves either. For us, they're like some kind of distant relatives. But this is only about how we feel, and we don't know how the other side thinks about us, you know. We rarely meet them, so I don't have a clue about what their feelings are. Do you know anything about the Sorcerer Kingdom? What's that? Instant reply. Well, he expected this, so he wasn't surprised. Anyway, he determined that nothing in the information acquired just now constituted a hindrance for the plan to make friends for the twins. That's all I wanted to ask. I am grateful. It's all good, aren't we friends? Ainz unintentionally smiled mirthlessly at the guy's reply. He was planning on making friends for others, but when the same word was pointed at him, it rang hollow. For Ainz, only his guildmates could ever be called his friends. That's it then. Mare popped his head out of the door behind the elf when Ainz sent him a signal. Ainz continued to talk with the guy to divert his attention. I also wanted to know more about things like elven culture, but I can't spend too much time on. He saw the elf's eyes become drowsy, and then he fell sideways onto the sofa. The elf was taking slow, calm breaths that were a mark of deep sleep. This sudden turn of events was caused by Mare's Sandman's sand. Ainz made Or, who was following Mare, confirm that the elf was asleep. Or, do you think we can reach the Dark Elves village using what this guy said? I feel like I can, probably. But I might need to conduct a detailed recon when we are nearer to find the exact location that was good enough for him. Ainz cast control amnesia on the elf. This was the main reason why he selected an elf living alone. Since it was hard to estimate an elf's age, he couldn't be sure that he would get an adult with all of the knowledge he required, even if he kidnapped a mature-looking elf. There was a chance the elf would end up being a very young person, who never stepped outside of the royal capital. On the other hand, he could be sure if he kidnapped an elf with children, but then there would be as many untied ends as there were members in that elf's family to deal with later. If he killed them all just because it was bothersome, it would mean that an entire family would have disappeared from the capital, without any signs of resistance to boot. That would surely create problems for them. He probably couldn't make it look like they had escaped away during the night due to debt or something. And there was no way his mana could last long enough to cast control, amnesia on a whole family like he was doing now. Therefore, he selected a male elf who lived alone. Ainz removed the elf's memories in a single move. Fine manipulation of memories, making sure that the details stayed consistent, was difficult. However, removing them in batches without caring much for the details was not that hard at all. Plus, the memories he needed to erase didn't span across that much time. This was the reason why he tried to take as little time as possible for his questions. If he didn't need to erase the elf's memories with control amnesia, Ainz would have spent as much time as possible, maybe even until the charm ended or even longer by casting charm species to question him. Since he controlled the number of questions and was done with the questioning in a short time, he easily managed to delete the memories up till the moment he went to sleep. No, he even ended up erasing a bit more to the time, just before the elf went to bed. This was caused by him wiping a bunch of memories at once, but his MP probably wouldn't have lasted otherwise. Speaking in hindsight, his remaining MP actually looked like it would have held, but hindsight was hindsight. He couldn't do anything about it now, so even if the elf had some doubts, he just had to hope that the elf would reason it out by himself. His MP was low, but because they managed to complete the task without an issue by preparing meticulously, he was left with enough to complete the remaining tasks. I'm leaving then. Aura and Mare, can you lend me a hand just like we planned? Okay. Leave it to me. Ah, yes. I will do my best. Aura and Mare held the elf's limbs, swinging him while they carried him with Ainz at their lead. Considering their strength, one would have been enough to carry the elf, but if he was hit by something and it was considered as damage, he may wake up. Then Ainz would have to cast control amnesia again, and he was not sure that his remaining MP was enough for that. Of course. I made a different plan for that scenario, so it shouldn't be a problem. Ainz first exited the green secret house by himself and activated Perfect on Noble. He opened a gate after that. Naturally, on the other side of the gate was the elf's house. Ainz first entered the gate alone and entered the elf's bedroom. He immediately started looking around while trying to listen for any sounds. It's safe. It seemed like there was no one around to be alarmed by the sudden gate. For a moment Ainz continued to listen carefully, observing the situation. Looks like there's no problem. A ranger on Aura's level could stay silent without letting Ainz hear anything. But it was not like even someone like Aura was doing it at all times. It would be like some farce out of a dark comedy if a veteran ranger existed who, in this short time, managed to notice something was wrong in this house, and laid in wait, expecting something to occur again. So, Ainz could only assume that it was safe. Ainz dispelled Perfect on Noble and stuck his head into the gate to send a signal to the twins. They carried the man, swinging by his limbs, through the gate. The three of them executed their plan in silence. First, Aura and Mare carefully laid the man on his bed made of leaves. It would be too idiotic if he were to receive damage now and end up waking. Sandman's sand caused a deeper sleep than sleep. One would wake up from just a shake for sleep, but wouldn't open their eyes unless they receive damage if it was Sandman's sand. If they left him like this and if no one discovered him and woke him up by causing damage to him, he would gradually die from emaciation. The uproar that would cause was not something Ainz wanted after going through all this trouble to not create any such disturbances. They started preparing to wake the guy up after letting him down on the bed. Ainz looked around the room, trying to find the object he saw when he entered it. It was a weird, at least he didn't find it ordinary, wooden sculpture with a bulging stomach that looked like the cross between a mole and a frog. They didn't find any such animals in the few days they had spent in the forest. Maybe it was a mythical beast from elven mythology and legends. Ainz took that sculpture into his hands. As I expected, it's wood. But it's heavier than I expected. Not bad, but if it ends up killing him, well, there's nothing I can do about that. It's very unlikely that they would suspect Ainz's involvement, even if they started a murder investigation. Upon seeing Ainz with the sculpture, the twins carried the elf under the shelf, where the sculpture was. After Ainz gave them a nod, the two went first into the gate. Ainz followed them and stopped just in front of it.